Welcome back to another video. My name is Aaron and I help people expand their consciousness. Now, in this video, I'm going to be explaining to you how you really create your own reality. I know there's a lot of hype around this, but really, it's pretty much kind of true. We are creating the kind of experience we're having based upon what we believe to be true, on how we identify ourselves to be, and who we are being in this moment is going to be the kind of reflection that we get. Now, I want to propose an idea to you, that when you go into a room and you talk to people, people are picking up on who you are being. And if you are acting in a certain way, people will mirror back to you and respond to you based upon that way. So if you walk around in victim mode, there are more likely, there will be people that will take advantage of you. But if you walk around and you feel confident about who you are and you're just being somebody that's more at the cause than the effect, that people will mirror that back to you and begin to respond to you in that way. Now, that's because that the way and who we are being is going to then determine the reflection that we get. Reality is more of a reflection than anything else. Now, this is important to understand because when we really begin to tap into this, we realize that we can be more at the cause than the effect. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you a realization that can help you transcend a lot of the BS that they talk about when it comes to how you go about this process. I want to show you an easier way to do this and really transcend a lot of the thinking, because sometimes there's so much emphasis put on the thinking. Think about what you want, then you will attract it. Put all the emphasis there, when really, I believe that we can shift ourselves to then becoming more of somebody who is being somebody that then has all the benefits of that reflection. Now, let's look at this in three different categories. So in one category, we have the idea of thinking. Then we shift ourselves into another category, which is doing. And then the third category, which is the most powerful, is the being category. Now, the reason it's so often talked about, the idea of why our self-image is so important in understanding how to let go of what doesn't serve us, is because our self-image is going to be directly correlated with who we are being. Our reality is a direct reflection of who we are being in this moment. Now, with that being said, we can use the other two categories as tools to get us to change the way that we view ourselves. So we have the idea of thinking. Whoever and how we repetitively think is going to leak into these other areas. Then we have the idea of doing, whatever we are doing consistently begins to literally wire ourselves in a new way to where we do things consistently to where it becomes habit, and then that becomes a part of who we are. So maybe the idea is that you play basketball every single day. If you do it enough, eventually you may just consider yourself somebody who plays basketball. That's because of the repetition. We may have a very positive mindset. As we continue to always have positive thought patterns, the idea is we may just start to associate ourselves as somebody who thinks positive. Now, we can change any of these if they're negative. So if we have negative thought patterns, the idea is we can change that to becoming somebody more positive by understanding how to change repetitively these two categories. These two categories combined begin to create who we are being in this moment. And then our reality is a reflection of who we are being. Now, this can be a very powerful tool because a lot of times the way that we define ourselves to be is going to then have at certain levels things that we hold on to that we don't necessarily prefer. So we could look at this and say that maybe when we were younger, something happened that put us into a way that we identify ourselves as a victim mode. Now, the idea is that even though we had an experience of when we were 5 years old that made us identify and want pity from people and to begin to be somebody that's just always in victim mode, the idea is that we are carrying the past into the present moment, and that is who we are being. Therefore, if we go out and people treat us in a certain way, they are doing and mirroring back to us who we are being. And if we learn how to think about ourselves in a new way, if we learn how to identify some of the things that happened when we were young and how we thought about ourselves, and we start to think about ourselves in a new way, and really this is about just letting go of that experience happening, we then begin to shift ourselves to where we let go of that part of our identity. Now, to do this, it's actually a lot easier than it seems. It seems like, because we hear all that all the time, the idea that our life is ran by our subconscious mind, which accounts for 95% of what we experience. But the idea is that the moment we become aware of something that's from the subconscious, it's no longer subconscious because now we are consciously aware of it. So we might ask ourselves the question, what would I have to believe is true to have this kind of experience? If I keep having people take advantage of me, what would I have to believe is true about myself in order for that to be? Well, I'd have to, think that I was not a worthy person, or that people had a right to do that. Then we say, what experiences may have caused that? Well, when I was 5, this happened with my dad. When I was, 8 years old, this happened in school. And as we begin to look at that, we begin to see it, we can use thinking as a tool to then not identify with it anymore. Now, the way that we do that is by simply realizing that in every moment, there is constantly change happening. We are always changing. And the idea behind this is to start realizing that the moment we become aware of something that's not conscious, or we become aware of a habit that we were unconsciously driven by, we then have the power to let it go. We can then see that when we are 5 years old and this thing happened, that that's not who we are anymore. We've been dragging our 5-year-old self all the way through life thinking that that's who we are. And when we begin to see that, we can just let go of it and start to be who we prefer to be. It's almost like we can just give ourselves permission in this moment right now to be who we really want to be. And as we begin to think in those terms, we can then use thinking in a new way if we need to. We can use action in a new way, doing in a new way, to then begin to act in accordance to who we prefer to be. And then as we do these two things consistently, we then start to actually be who we prefer to be. Now realize that these two can be tools to get to the being, but a lot of times if we simply let go of a lot of the way that we define ourselves, if we just let go of some of the stories we continuously tell ourselves, these two things begin to take care of itself. It doesn't have to be something that we get to every little circumstance when we were 6 years old and all this little stuff. And if you don't know what it is, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. The idea is that as you become more aware of these things and as you see these patterns, you make these patterns, even if it's action and it's a habitual thing that you do, as you become aware of it, you start to take your power back. This is about really understanding that you can be the perfect version of yourself. If you simply imagine it in your mind, you start to take action in that way and acting on how that version of you would act. You start to think how that person would think. Then you will start to actually be that version of yourself. Let me give you an example of this. For me, for example, my intention is to be the best version of myself who's able to help reflect back to people ideas that are already within them. So it could be me teaching or, sharing, I don't like the word teaching, but sharing these ideas on YouTube. As I share these ideas on YouTube and I take massive action with it and I start to think about myself in a new way and really let go of a lot of the stuff that I may have, attributed from childhood, I then begin to be the best version of myself. I might look into the future on what I would want to be experiencing, so maybe giving lectures or, helping people in person or doing it for a living to where I don't have to have a job. As I begin to see that, I can then look at that version of myself and say, what would I be consistently thinking about? What books would I be reading? How would I relate to other people? Then I can look and see what kind of habits would I have? How would I wake up in the morning? What time would I wake up at? What kind of way would I be, going out there in the world and making a difference? What things would I consistently be doing? And then as I begin to do those things, and then think like that, I then start to actually become that perfect version of myself, and then my reality will begin to reflect that. So really, this is about understanding that you can be the best version of yourself right now by simply taking your power back. Become aware of the habits that you have that no longer serve you, that are on autopilot. Become aware of the thinking patterns that you have that no longer serve you. Bring the subconscious into the conscious. Begin to then be, in the present moment, the best version of yourself. And then you'll begin to see reality literally begin to form to that way that you're being. So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to like this video if you liked it, share it if you found it of value, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace, much love, and namaste.